for showing up, Come NYC. We're so excited to have Dana Moore, licensed acupuncturist and professor at Pacific College of Health and Science, or is it Pacific College of Oriental Medicine?
Health and Science.
Health and Science, that's what I thought. All snaps.
Yay!
Thank you so much for having your time and your wisdom and sharing a little piece of your expertise and what you know about trauma from the Eastern and Western perspectives.
Sure. Well, hello everyone. So thank you for having me and inviting me to talk a little bit about what I know about trauma. More from the Eastern. I do know a little bit from the Western perspective, but I can go down a whole big rabbit hole with that, which I don't want to do. So I want to keep it focused to what we do here at CALM and more of the holistic approach that we take to healing trauma. So I'm glad we have like a little bit of a crew, and I want to try to make this as interactive as possible, so it's not just me talking at you guys. So I always like to start with talking about what trauma is, right? And if you guys want to just yell out what you think trauma may be or what you know trauma to be, we can start that way. So what is trauma?
What is trauma?
Pain.
Fear?
Fear, pain, anything else? Injury. So kind of. Trauma is actually an emotional response to all of that, right? It's your emotional response specific to an event that happens to you specifically, whether it be an accident or something, or trauma is an emotional response to the national disasters that we have had, that we are having, such as, what we're gathered here for this evening, right? Remembering September 11th. One thing to note immediately after a traumatic event is that shock is your typical response, but you also have longer term reactions such as flashbacks, unpredictable dysregulated emotions, and even physical symptoms. So trauma can manifest physical pain, indigestion, headaches, migraines. So it definitely has an element of some kind of physicality that goes along with it. And so, as I said before, we're gathered here, on this day at this time to kind of remember the events of the past, and we have to acknowledge the trauma there, right? There are still people who can relive those moments from 20 years ago as specifically as if it was yesterday. There are many people who have been up to this day, on social media, posting their experiences, posting what they remember, posting, tributes and dedications. But what I found interesting is that when they post or what they say, it's so detailed. It's almost like it was yesterday. It's almost like it's still there. And that's because traumatic experiences are actually imprinted on our emotional bodies, right? Our emotional bodies, our physical bodies, our energetic bodies, and it's also imprinted in our conscious and subconscious mind. And so following a trauma, those things are easily recalled, easily remembered. Our bodies hold on to that cellular memory of trauma. And the way to explain that is if you have a cellular memory of trauma, you get triggered easily. You can get triggered by a touch. You can get triggered by a sound or a smell. You can be triggered, in this arena that we treat in. The way we place our patients' bodies can be triggers, right? Someone can't always lay supine. Someone can't always lay prone because that can be a traumatic trigger. Touch is important because that can be a trigger, right? And so as a practitioner, I'm always asking, is it okay if I touch you, even if it's something as simple as taking a pulse? Because you never know how people will respond to your touch, to your sound, anything. I think in the medical community we have what's called universal precautions, and if you're familiar with that, that means that you wash your hands before and after every patient, because you have to act as if someone has some kind of communicable disease. Yeah, that's universal precautions. What in the time since 9/11, there's universal precautions around trauma, which is you have to treat everyone as if they've experienced some kind of trauma. So that's also like a newer universal precaution. You treat everyone as if they have experienced some kind of traumatic injury or traumatic events, which is safe to say now between 9/11 and the pandemic, everybody has experienced, right, or some level of trauma that they've been experiencing. Any questions so far? Like I feel like I'm talking at you. No one wants to say anything. No one wants to say anything, because trauma represents a threat, right? Person experiencing trauma reverts to survival-based coping strategies. It's your instinct. It's what you go. So you automatically go into survival mode, and when you do that, then you're cut off from your source energy. You're cut off from your intuition. You're cut off from your trust in your inherent wisdom, and that disconnect, it causes a disconnect with that source, with that authentic part of your being, where you then function more from a survival mode or survival state than that from a mode of creativity and empowerment, right? And so as we treat, or as we aim to treat trauma, we're aiming to shift that so that you can then get in touch with your inner self, your source, to be able to function from within, instead of being in survival mode all the time. There's a Dutch clinician who says, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name, 'cause I'm so going to get it wrong. But he says that trauma is not the story of something that happened back then. It's the current imprint of that pain, horror, and fear living inside of people. So a lot of people who struggle with trauma continue to live in those events. And because trauma affects us psychologically, it affects us physically, emotionally, behaviorally, cognitively, spiritually, then it just makes sense that a holistic approach to healing would be beneficial, which is what we have created here. Thank you, Molly. Thank you, Tim. We've created here this holistic approach to treating people who are suffering from trauma. And so calm, what we have here, what was created here, is what we wanted to do was offer a little piece of calm in a busy New York, right? And I think we've done a good job with that in the past month. I think the month that we've been here, I think we've done a good job. You know, I think that you can tell the energy from coming outside of a busy Union Square. As soon as you step in, there's a sense of calm in the space, right? There's the quietness, there's the birds, there's the dome, there's just the lighting, the elements. I think that what we did together encompasses what Molly's vision was for calm. And so the idea behind it was to address the trauma of the pandemic we've been living through. I hope that was the idea behind it. Did I just make that up? Okay.
Spot
on. Was to address the trauma of the pandemic we've been living through for the past year and a half with the holistic approach, right? Offering the massage, offering acupuncture, breath work, meditation, sound healing, this dome experience, which is amazing. And even while we're here reflecting on 9/11, we can correlate some of the experiences of trauma between then and now, right? 20 years ago, families suffered. Wives lost their husbands. Husbands lost their wives. Families lost sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles, cousins. Parents lost their children. Children lost their parents. And if we think back to the past year and a half, it's been the same. Right? We've lost a lot of people. So trauma is, there's no disconnect, right? It's everywhere, it's evident. There's always going to be something that is going to cause like a traumatic experience, a traumatic event, whatever it is, whether it's a national pandemic, whether it's a terrorist attack, or whether it's just something that happened in the family. So, trauma is something that we will never escape it. And it affects every part of who we are, and as such can be healed if addressed in every part of ourselves, which is where the holistic approach to healing comes in. And here at CALM, that's how we have chosen to treat that trauma that we see, is through that holistic approach. And so over time, we'll begin to develop resilience and make choices on how to reconnect with the present moment. And as we start to live in that present moment, we then transition to survivors, not in survival mode, but transition to being actual survivors, and understand that trauma, although it is a part of our experience, it's not who we are. And so creating and maintaining this holistic option of therapy is the foundation of our future for trauma healing. So that's what I have about trauma. If there's any questions, open discussions, happy to have them. Make the questions easy. It's revolutionary. I'm revolutionary.
Yeah, you're revolutionary in this field too. Yeah.
Am I really? Okay, I will receive that. I'll receive that.
I'll have some questions for like the sort of on a more physical nature, since we're both doing acupuncture and massage. You all take massage teams. Are there any things you recommend from your experience, such as like essential oils or certain points on the body? The channels, obviously, I know if I have to dig through it, but I guess I'm curious about sort of smells and where your first go-to on the body when you want to treat someone that's dealing with it. A trauma such as the pandemic and 9/11.
Yeah, so it's so many ways to answer that, because I think it's person specific.
Sure.
Right? Because smells, although like with aromatherapy, is a good thing. Right? Aromatherapy is supposed to be this beneficial mode of therapy, but smells can also trigger more trauma. Right? And so I believe it's person specific, right? You have to know your patient, or you have to know their sensitivities, right? So aromatherapy probably wouldn't be my first option. I'd have to know the person, I'd have to get to know them, I have to know what they like, what they dislike, I have to know their aversions to certain things. And I think when we treat, one of the things that we ask, and Ivana, Chi Hui, students of mine know that we ask what makes things better, what makes them worse, right? So we get a feel and a sense of the things that we should stay away from when we're treating. I think it's the same for parts of the body as well. Would I necessarily go to a point right here, the third eye point, or the wrist point? Someone maybe have aversion of someone's hands coming to their face. Someone may have an aversion of someone touching their wrist. Maybe they were grabbed. So it really is person specific, and I think that once you get to know your patients and really take the time to kind of invest in that practitioner-patient relationship and get to know the things that they are averse to, then you can make that determination on physically where you would go for treatment right off the bat when it's trauma related. And also within the intake, if you will, kind of explore the nature of the trauma.
Sure.
Right? Because that's also going to help guide to where or what your treatment is going to look like.
Sure.
Yeah. Sorry, I couldn't be more
I
specific,
get
but it really is person specific.
Yeah. There's no like magic elixir to be like, yeah, you're
I wish there
trauma
was.
free.
Oh, I wish it was.
Yeah.
All right.
I have a question.
Yep.
So, considering what we have experienced this last year and a half, so I think everyone kind of feels similarly about this feeling of isolation, disconnected, and certain people experience more in their maybe family or loved ones that has experienced even more trauma that way. Is there something that we can kind of initiate some kind of or is it actually good to initiate certain conversation about these things and maybe bring that to a point where we're trying to have a understanding or maybe helping to share that experience and share the trauma and maybe there's a way that we can both help each other.
Yeah, I think that coming together in a community space and talking about it, discussing it, as long as the people are ready for it, it is definitely a helpful beginning to a healing journey. I think in other areas where I work or where I practice, a lot of work that we do is community style, because when you get a group of people in a setting, in a space that's geared specifically to their healing, whether it's acupuncture, massage, talk therapy, whatever it is, there's a synergy that happens within that space amongst those people that kind of, again, that holistic healing process that really speaks to the healing work that takes place in that moment at that time. And so what I've witnessed is that each time it's different, because there's different people, there's different conversations, there are different people treating, there are different treatments happening, but the healing energy is still there, and it still works, and it still invites people to come back and get more and receive more. And so if you have a group of people who want to get together and kind of have a talk session or whatever it is, or just sit together in the dome like we are and really have that healing conversation, or the beginnings of a healing conversation, I think that would be excellent. I think it would be a step in the right directions toward their healing, towards like a healing energy, a healing space. Yeah, I think that would be great. Did I answer your question, or did I just babble?
I think so. Right in there.
Yes. Yes, the answer is yes. Yes.
Have you ever had to turn down or stop working with a client? Like you had to stop working with them because their energy was just too much for you. But they kept coming to you for sessions, thinking like it's gonna work at some point, but they continue to present like such intense energy, like so yeah. There you go.
So a couple parts. So no.
No, okay.
I've never stopped working with a client because of that source of energy that you're talking about. But I have clients who have that really strong energy. But I continue to work with them because I feel like they've gravitated to me for a reason and for a purpose. And currently, right? Currently, when I'm meeting with them, when I'm treating them, my energy is not at a place where I'm feeling like I can no longer help. And so when I still feel like I can help and I can serve a purpose and I can make a difference for this person, I will continue to work with them with modifications, right? So there may be some things that I won't be able to do with them, or I can't do with them because the energy is not matching. But then there are certain techniques or some things where I can bring them down a little bit to where my energy can kind of guide theirs a little bit. So there's like certain things that you can do in the moment. Please don't ask me what those things are right now. Because it's like you kind of figure it. You go with the flow in the moment of the treatment. But I do have clients with that high energetics, but I continue to work with them. When I feel like I can no longer be of help, of assistance, then I'll have to refer them to someone else. But for right now, I'm still working with them. And it's very interesting. It's very interesting. Interesting work. Chihui, I see you nodding, so you want to add to that? Oh. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I have one more. I don't want to
Okay.
like take the whole thing. It's like not even that much of a question. It could be like it's gonna be a vulnerable share a little bit on just on my part. Just on my part. As we're like you know reflecting for the pandemic, we're reflecting 9/11. We're reflecting even just the run of COM, like hearing you talk about opening this space.
Mm-hmm.
I've been, and you're talking about a shared talk therapy. I know I'm going forward having to do my work with my clients, but then recognizing I know I'm not the only massage therapist in New York City right now. Thinking back on a year and a half ago when the pandemic first hit, that was traumatic for us. Like, I remember seeing my full book schedule and like one by one just go. And then within 3 days, the city was shut down, and then within 3 days, the company I was working for went bankrupt.
Wow.
And I had just found out I was pregnant, and it was like, holy.
Wow.
So I'm still, that's my vulnerable share, and I'm still feeling like I'm sorting it out. And yeah, you're right on that I created this space to kind of, I guess, provide jobs for people and provide the space for healing. But I'm also like, when we were talking about coping on survival mechanisms, like I want to make sure I'm not doing that here. And I just, and I guess from your, like, I would like, maybe we could talk after, but like the direction you could see COM NYC going as far as this post-pandemic, because I'm still recovering. I think we're all, and I think I'm not, again, like I said, I'm not the only massage therapist that's like, we're still out of work,
Right. I want to, and thank you for your vulnerable share, but I would like to share with you an observation.
Sure.
Right? Based on what you just shared, everything that you experienced at the height of the pandemic or at the beginning, and then this space. I think what you did, and I don't know if you realize this, but you created for us in this time what you needed at that time. So I think that everything you felt that you needed in the height of the pandemic, you visualized and manifested this whole space based on that. Don't cry. Nope, that's not gonna be a good thing. That's not gonna be a good thing. If you're gonna start, I'm gonna start, and just no. I'm already starting to tear up.
Yeah.
Stop. So that's my observation. I feel like you created what you needed. Where I think that there's a lot of places that you can take this. But it's because it started from your source and from your intuition. We, your team, can really help you create the vision. So you have to know where it's going to go, right? You have to have some kind of idea on the roads you want to take, and then we'll help you take it there. because my idea of where it can go may not be your vision. Tim's idea of where it can go, Ivana's idea, it might not be your vision. So when you share what your vision is, or when you know what your vision is, you know, as it continues to grow, you share with your team, and then we help you manifest it and help you bring it to life. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. But we can, I mean, I'm happy to talk about ideas and
We
stuff.
can talk after hours live too. Yeah.
Talk about ideas and stuff, but
Yeah.
I really think it has to come from you.
Sure.
Just like this came from here,
Yeah.
the future has to come from here too, and then we can help you build it and create it.
Thanks.